Hey, by the way, you have a wicked sense of humor. Hey, hello, everyone, and welcome to This Week in Hospitality Marketing, live show number 218. With me is the ever-knowledgeable, omnipresent, and satirical humor master, Mr. Robert
Satirical
Cole.
humor master. Wow.
Yes, I love the letters you send out to the marketing board for HSMAI. I did not know I was in the Q aspect of MI6. I'm impressed with myself.
Well, that's good. There was some subtle stuff. So yeah, you are the ultimate when it comes to tools in hotel marketing. You are the Q of the industry.
I was afraid you were calling me a tool for just a minute. Speaking of tools.
Well. He may not
I've been called worse. Hey guys.
Oh, the master Swiss Army knife of digital marketing himself.
Oh, see, I always considered Stuart a hammer. So
Yeah. Everything looks like a nail.
every problem looks like a nail. That's right.
That's right.
That's right. Yeah, that's very true. Mr. Stuart Butler with Fuel Travel. How are you, sir? And by the way, thank you for the kudos in saying if you want to look out for some cool information, you threw our show in there on the podcast. I appreciate that.
Did I? I don't even remember. I was probably drunk at the time.
Well, hey, I'll take drunk happy compliments any day. I'm okay with all of that.
That's right.
Those compliments are compliments, even if you have to go over and give them drugs to give it. I don't care.
That's right. Lauren knows there won't be any sober compliments, so that's.
Oh, good God, no. Oh, good God, no. But hey, I want to start giving your podcast a run for the money because I'm doing a cleanup on one thing. I'm not trying to bring back the old recap of my podcast stuff that I've been doing. I am doing a whole new podcast. So you have competition, my friend. I'm coming at you. Okay, you know.
Hey, there's no competition in podcasts.
No, there isn't really.
Infinite time to listen to stuff.
The pod here. Come on, give me some smack talk back. Come on.
I've got to go develop a new podcast. Obviously, I'm falling behind here.
It's a weird medium. Like I feel like everyone in that realm is very collaborative and encouraging, and cross promotes, and it's been really neat seeing those. It's a newer podcast called the Slick Talk hospitality podcast with a guy called Will Slickers, WIL Slickers, which is a really cool name. But he's just this guy that he manages a property and he's passionate about hospitality. So he just started like we did. He just got a microphone and just started recording, and now he's kind of finding his feet. And I was a guest on his show a couple of weeks ago, but it's really good. I would encourage people to check that one out as well.
Just 1 second. I'll take this offline. Stuart, you aren't supposed to tell people that we just got microphones and started doing this. The training and the rehearsals and the
it's like Rocky. It was like Rocky.
I mean, my God.
I don't know how many eggs I eat. I lost count how many eggs I eat.
Yeah, to start a podcast, all you need is a microphone and a little bit of scrappiness, and you can go figure it all out. You know,
that's true.
Speaking of scrappiness, here comes
Scrappy.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, if this guy can do a podcast, anybody can do a podcast.
That's right. Hey, Mr. Tim.
Howdy.
You didn't care to hear our intro to you before you popped on?
Not a peep.
It's referred to as scrappy. The scrappy.
Well, you got to play back this part at least for the show. For anybody,
we were talking about the barrier to entry to podcasts is it's lower than people think. People are deceived in thinking that it's a tough thing to pull off, but you literally need a microphone and a couple of hours to go be scrappy and research.
That's exactly right. It's less than $100 for a decent microphone will get you started. And hosting costs tens of dollars per month. I mean, really. I mean, for a couple $100 in the first year.
Yeah, you can, and it's just sweat equity at that point. And my point was, if Tim Peter can do it, anyone can do
it. And Fuel Travel's actually writing off, what is it, $2.5 million a year on your.
Well, it's an asset on our balance sheet now. It's
The reason why I brought up the podcast thing, we were joking around it, is I went over and downloaded Catalina. You know how I love to go in bleeding edge. As soon as it comes out, I got to get it. So as soon as Catalina came out as an OS, scared the crap out of myself yesterday because in the middle of it uploading, we had a power loss.
Oh no!
And you're like, oh no! Fortunately, Apple's really cool, not like Microsoft. That when that happens to Microsoft, you are totally tattooed.
Yeah.
at least Apple goes, "Hey, would you like to resume the upload?" I'm like, "Yes, please."
Yes. So I don't lose all my stuff. Yes, please. Let's do that.
But front and center podcast, boom, right between the new Apple TV and podcast, man. Major function on the nav bar.
It's only a matter of time before that format's ruined like everything else, you know?
Well, right, exactly right.
So right now it's kind of the free-for-all, but if you look, there's a lot of consolidation going on, right? iHeartMedia has bought a lot of the big guys, right? In this, it's only a matter of time, mark my words, before it's subscription-based for the quality content. Right now it's free and ad-supported, but I'm pretty sure at some point it's going to go to that model for a lot of folks.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's right. It's funny. You talk about Catalina and you talk about podcasts. This is not to scare anyone off. I actually use fairly advanced software for podcasting just because, if you couldn't tell, I'm into music. Like I have software that I record music on. For fun when I have, my copious spare time. But some of the plugins that go with the software that I run usually lag the new operating systems by about 6 months. So I only just updated to Mojave just before Catalina dropped because I can't go to Mojave yet. I can't go to Catalina yet because it will break some of the stuff I use. But if you're using GarageBand or Audacity or anything like that,
that's
GarageBand. You use Audacity or you use GarageBand.
So Tim, are you auto-tuned right now? Is that how we got melodious?
If you believe in love, a life after love, yes. Man, sounds just like Cher.
Exactly. Yeah.
No, one of the things that I always jump on the new stuff first, and of course, things that break. I'm having an issue now. My OBS software, of course, to your point, Tim, is like I don't know where I'm at. I have no file structure at all. So getting us pushed over to the Restream is a bit of an interesting issue right now as I play in the background. But yeah, it's two things. You jump on it, but not everything's up to date with it, so you have to break some software. So I never update straight away. I always wait.
I used
a couple of months.
I used to until it started breaking my recording gear, and then I was like, "Oh, I need to stop doing that." But that's pure, for fun, not for work. So, but I'm usually like a half a version behind or a full version.
Yeah, my 13-year-old son just had the joys of being on a beta for the first time. Like when he was all excited with iOS, is it 13 just came out, and he was on the beta about 4 or 5 months ago when the beta first came out, and he went ahead and it's like, I'm special, I'm going to be exclusive, and I'm like, dude, let me know how that goes for you.
Yeah.
So I think that's his first and last beta that he's going to try.
Beta is fantastic if you're a developer. Like if you're testing your products for release when the new thing becomes real or what have you. But if you depend upon your technology for your business, beta, as a friend of mine likes to say, beta means never having to say you're sorry.
That's right. That's why a lot of Google products stay in beta forever.
Right.
Oh, that's right. Is Google Maps finally out of beta? I don't know.
I don't know. The whole Drive and Docs and all that was literally years in beta.
Oh yeah,
crazy.
Yeah. Maps was too for a long time.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyway,
sorry, I'm in the background typing up some posts on what we're doing.
Lauren dozed off. He was doing some other work.
No.
He's actually on a client call, even as we speak.
But the other thing with I was speaking to Robert about is he's got that snarky sense of humor. I love the letters he sends over to the marketing board. I didn't know I was in MI6Q program, and Stuart, I didn't even know you were in MI6. We should have gotten together for coffee, I guess.
Secret identity's blown, man. It's terrible.
Sage and man, yeah.
It's called compartmentalization, right?
That's true. That's right.
On the need to know, and I didn't need to know, right?
Deniability, right? Yeah, exactly.
But you can also tend to know what Robert's working on or has a particular interest in based on the lean sometimes on the topics he pulls into the curated list.
Not always.
Well, not always, but mostly. You try to throw in the Airbnb discussion for Stuart. But definitely vacation rentals was on your mind this week, wasn't it, Mr. Robert?
there were like 3 articles on it. So it was, Google is now starting to do in vacation rentals what they did with hotels, where, oh my goodness, look at this. They're starting to get this little box up there that directs you to Google content instead of the other stuff. Who would have thought?
Gatekeepers gonna gate, man. I say it week after week after week.
Yeah.
Gatekeepers gonna gate.
They go, hey, that worked pretty well for hotels. I think it might work for this other stuff too. So, but there seems to be a little bit of pushback because Booking Holdings is saying they aren't playing. So,
right.
We'll see how all this works out. And does Airbnb need to be in there or not? So, I don't know. Those are 3 fairly large groups, but that's why I kind of threw them in. So, where do you guys think who wins?
Google always wins, right?
Always wins.
Yeah. So
I think it's
who comes second? It's interesting because we work in the vacation rental space more so the condotels than true vacation rentals, but it's an industry that's got unique challenges to hotels, and it's an industry that's a lot more fragmented than hotels. So it's gonna be interesting to see from an integration perspective how quick they ramp up and how much they rely on third-party aggregators like Booking or Expedia to provide the inventory, because
that's their preference always, is to try to get those big guys, because they don't want to connect to all these little guys and have to deal with that.
Right.
And they're still struggling on the hotel side to connect to people.
They are.
I mean, we went through that process and it took forever, and it breaks frequently, and the user interface is sucky, and there's a lot of challenges with it. So it's gonna be interesting to see. I don't think ultimately, if you're a vacation rental manager, I don't think this is great for you. I think this is better for Expedia, better for Google than it is for the individual managers.
Yeah.
Why do you say that, Stuart?
Because I think that they're going to struggle to get with the hotels, right? Most savvy hotels now have the official site listing on the Google Hotel Ads. Right? You would say. I think it's going to take a little longer and be a little more cumbersome for individual vacation rental management companies to get to that point. So
makes sense.
I think in the short term, I think the intermediaries are going to just get more opportunity to get in front of people before the vacation rental company. And because we work with condotels a lot, I see a lot. I don't go to like the Vermas and stuff like that, but I talk to a lot of folks in that industry, and there are kind of pseudo OTAs cropping up in that space because Expedia, Booking.com don't do a great job differentiating that inventory.
Right.
And vacation rentals is complex, especially when you deal with not just things like beach homes and individual units, but a lot of times a large chunk of it is renting individual units out of a resort property, right? When it's a condo hotel. So there's so many challenges online related to that, in terms of reviews, who's leaving reviews for which unit, and who's the management company, what amenities you get to use at that property based on who you rented.
Sure.
Right? There's so many nuances to it that this is going to be complicated to where, I have properties in, say, Panama City Beach. It might be a 400-unit property, and there might be 30 different companies renting units out of there. And the person that has the most may have 25, 30 units. And some people are renting them themselves on Vrbo and places like that. So this could be really messy on the Google side, because if everyone eventually does get the integration that's renting units out of those types of properties, you're going to see a bazillion offerings there. So it becomes a price competition then, and then everyone suffers, including the consumer, because ultimately the product is going to be lacking because the profit margins aren't there.
And even hotels still have problems with, the intermediaries with unifying those that inventory, right? Because it's like, that's a deluxe king, but then it's called a something else, and it's the same room, and a lot of times you'll see the prices be the same. Starwood used to have a huge problem with that. I wouldn't say a problem. I don't know if they thought it was a feature. I considered it a bug. When they have 28 room categories, and you just look and go, come on, just give me, make it simple for me to pick one instead of go through and get and see a price. A lot of them now, you'll see the exact same room pretty much at different prices, because yes, there are different rate plans, but the consumer has no idea how that works, and they're sitting there going, well, that's $5 more. Do I get something for it or not? Or am I making a mistake? And
and data flows aren't always clean. I mean,
right.
For things that are theoretically standard inventory. I had a problem with one of my hotels this week where they were showing, I forget what the price was, $60 more in Google Hotel Price ads relative to the OTAs. And the reason was because for some reason that nobody's been able to figure out, Google was showing the triple occupancy rate for the official site, but was showing the dual occupancy rate for all the OTAs. Why? Nobody knows.
I thought you were testing that bundled escort thing you were working on with those guys.
$60 extra.
I work with much higher quality products than that, Robert.
He's testing price points for conversion.
Yeah. But it literally was just a data flow problem. And I mean, this was, quote unquote, a standard room type, right? And there was a dramatic difference in rate being displayed because it was just showing the wrong field, right? It was showing the triple or quadruple occupancy.
How did Google support handle that for you? Non-existent.
I beg pardon?
How did
do what?
Yeah,
that's an oxymoron there.
They're the second worst behind TripAdvisor.
Yeah. So it went nowhere fast is really the answer to that question. And fortunately now it's Friday, so it doesn't matter. And next week we're actually showing up less expensive. So maybe it all averages out in the end.
The good old Priceline booking engine, though. I mean, not the Booking.com. The Priceline one still can't handle triples.
Right.
Still does not support triple occupancy. So not good. So, and they never changed it. It's been like that for what? 19 years. They built it for 20 years. They built it wrong to begin with, and then they've just stuck with it. So.
Yeah, it'll be curious to see. I agree with you generally, Stuart. What I'm most interested to see is, how do people solve for the connectivity problems? Because that is fundamentally a thing that does not go well often and limits various suppliers' ability to actually sell on these channels. I mean, even if you want to, you can't because you can't get your inventory there.
Right.
And that's really, I think, the frustrating part. And I think Google is vaguely conscious of that. But how much inventory is enough for them to say, well, we have enough to sell, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
The really interesting thing is the end game is going to wind up being kind of rules-based pricing, right? Where you have some sort of rule that dictates this, and then you can still, with everything's kind of file-based.
We're going to have the attribute-based selling debate again, Robert.
No. I'm not talking about doing really stupid attribute-based stuff. I'm just saying that you have a basic rule that says for this many people over these dates.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
To actually produce what's relevant for them, and you don't wind up showing them a bunch of stuff they aren't interested in, right?
No, that makes sense.
They got to do that first, and then you can start. Then actually, in terms of attributes, then you can start doing logical things about using hard and soft filtering of here's something, what you looked for wasn't quite there, but we have this to help the consumer. Right. And then, of course, as Stuart was saying, the people spoiling the podcast area, that will then come in the attribute based on, and let's just go spray them with every permutation and combination of crap they could care less about, and really just totally destroy the whole process. So.
Well, and to go back to Stuart's original statement a moment ago, the winner here is ultimately going to be Google, right? Yeah. I mean, fundamentally, they. What's their mission? To organizing the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful, or something like that, right?
Advertisable.
Well, and that's really the point, right?
Monetizable, right? I guess would probably be the
So I mean, this is just one more place. So there was a thing a couple years ago. This isn't very long ago. I just don't remember the date. It's probably 4 years ago or something like that. Google lost search share for the first time in its history. So every year, more people search on Google than the year before, right? Mm-hmm. Fewer people search on Bing, fewer people search on whatever, or at least Bing's growth is smaller than Google's, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're gaining more share. And about 4 years ago-ish, don't hold me to the exact dates, Google lost search share for a quarter or two. And the reason was because people weren't searching. They were opening up an app on their phone.
Right.
They were using Expedia when they wanted a hotel, or they were using, Zillow when they wanted a house, or they were using Indeed if they wanted a job, or Amazon if they wanted a product. And I think Google learned their lesson then that, it doesn't matter what people are searching for. They have to start at Google. So the more data, the more types of content, the more types of information they pull in as a thing you can search for readily, the more they're going to attract, it's a flywheel. The more they're going to attract consumer behavior that says, I need X, I go to Google.
Right.
As opposed to I need this, I go here.
That they need to get further down the supply
value
chain. The
Yep,
value chain to make sure that they're
For sure.
important in multiple aspects, not just the initial search.
Well,
Right.
and that's why they spent, what was it, $800 million to buy ITA software for Air.
Right.
And you go, well, Air you can't monetize as easily as hotel. It's like, right, but now all of a sudden you have kind of this underlying source, deep web information of the rate and availability tables for these carriers that ITA had, which that's not published on the web. That's like the underlying rules that run this thing. They could make it super fast. And Air is kind of like an indicator for needing a hotel, because you go, look at that. 9 months from now, they're going to be in New York City. On a non-refundable rate. Look at that. Or fare. That might be something we could use to, make it a better buying signal for somebody. So
and I think there's a theory. There are a couple different theories that go by different names. The one I tend to quote a lot is Ben Thompson of Stratechery, who always talks about aggregation theory. There's variants on this, but the idea is, we used to be a supply-driven world, right? There was limited supply, and you won by controlling access to the supply and things like that.
Right.
And basically, aggregation theory is we are now a demand-driven world,
Absolutely.
and you win by controlling access to the demand. And Google really is the leader when we talk about controlling access to that demand. So fundamentally, anything that they do that aggregates, thus the name aggregation theory, aggregates more demand to them, the better position they're going to be in. And so this is ultimately going to be a win for Google in the longer term, regardless of who gets steamrolled along the way.
Well, and look at the history of Expedia and Booking. What did Expedia do? Everywhere was, yes, they acquired a bunch of stuff, but they always acquired demand. They knew we can go get 500,000 hotels or whatever, but if you don't have enough demand to fill those things, it doesn't work. It is not a chicken and egg situation. You need that demand on.
And I've said this before, so I won't say you've heard it here first, but I'm going to make my bold prediction that by 2030, brace yourself for Bookspedia. The merger of Booking.com and Expedia, right? Or Book B&B or Xb&B, or take your pick.
I could see TripAdvisor getting rolled up one, but I don't see it.
TripAdvisor
I said
will disappear.
2030, right? I'm putting this far enough out.
It's not that far along,
I know, but it's,
and the big one's going to be voice, though, is where you really if you get solid AI combined with voice, where you just go, get me the best hotel in New York, and you literally.
Who do you think is going to solve that problem first?
Well, that's why they spend a lot on duplex and things like that. But Tim makes a great point on his podcast a lot about how Google really isn't, as a search engine, isn't that sticky to the consumer, right? The cost to jump ship and go to another solution is very low. It's, compared to like a Facebook where, and you said this recently, Tim, I'm paraphrasing you, but if you wanted to leave Facebook, you've got to have all of your connections, your entire tribe to move at the same time to make that worthwhile. But with Google, if they stop the deal with Apple where they were the default search engine tomorrow, for which they pay a lot of money every year.
At least $4 billion a year, and possibly as much as $9 billion.
I mean, imagine if that deal went away, if Apple struck that deal with Microsoft next week. That's a huge drop in their ability to provide that demand.
Yeah.
So they've got to protect themselves, and getting further down the value chain is one of those ways. The other winner with this is Bing, because Bing, I'm convinced they have an R&D department of one, and that one person just clicks on Google every day, figures out what they're doing, and then copies it. And I'm kind of kidding, right?
But fast follow is
so
a
look at
strategy,
so
right?
Microsoft Hotel Ads is recently rolling out, right? It is exactly, the UI is exactly the same as Google Hotel Ads, but more humorous than that is, because we're a developer and we wanted to integrate, we got the specs. The specs to integrate are literally the exact same as Google. So
no, wait.
If you have the file for Google, you have it for Bing.
Yeah.
So you're saying the real
Google in there.
You're saying the real R&D is making sure that the find and replace for the spring Google and Bing in Word works perfectly.
Right.
Now, I will give caveats to Bing as its relationship with LinkedIn, being Microsoft. LinkedIn, I'm putting together a quiz for promoting the Rocket program that's running through Florida that I'm speaking at. And one of it is, the new quiz I'm putting together is, how well do you know LinkedIn? Mm-hmm. And I didn't know LinkedIn as well. I went through all their training stuff, tore it apart. And I was looking at the things that combinations of filterings that I had never even considered. And it's being driven by Bing's databases as well. That's all being pulled into LinkedIn stuff as well. And some of those combinations, I tried them, and it amplified dramatically my ability to target correctly.
Actually, what's really crazy, Lauren, is you should have seen it you should have seen it in 2016. They've actually pulled some things out of the ways you could search after all the, foreign actors, I shouldn't say foreign actors, I should say bad actors, using some really shady targeting to do some really
right. We aren't pointing the finger at Stuart at all. That's okay.
That's right. Be kind to your local foreigner.
Hey, by the way, backdrop award this week goes to Mr. Robert Cole, who has been able to keep the kitchen door in his back purview. So got the true hospitality background in his space. Now, mindful of the weird looks he's getting from people as they go in and out of the door with his headset on, thinking he's commentating a golf game, but
That's hilarious.
By the way, I do feel obligated to ask, now since we've diverged a little bit, I feel obligated to ask, Robert, I feel like this is Where's Waldo, but where in the world is Robert today?
Oh, I'm just near our kitchen at home. We have a it's kind of high capacity. Serving neighbors. No, I'm at a Panera, actually. So
there it is.
My wife hurt her knee, so I'm providing Uber services for her. So I'm kind of camped out here.
You're such a good husband.
I saw that. I just watched it hanging back and forth. It looked like a Marie Callender's or something. I was hoping somebody was going to bring you a piece of pie.
Hey, folks, I have to leave, unfortunately. Nothing scary or urgent. It is urgent, but it's not scary. So I have to go. But
is everything you're okay, Stuart?
Yeah. I'm okay. Everyone's okay. It's a work-related nonsense, but it's okay.
That's come on.
Hey, how dare you take care of
Who is the boss, Stuart? Who is the boss? You need to exert authority over these guys. Oh, okay.
All right. Have a great weekend.
Yep. Bring it back if you can.
Google heard Stuart say something and called him.
Get off the show. Get off the show.
We need to talk. It's Sergey. Get dropped now.
All right. So, Mr. Roberts, since you did kind of keep the theme pretty much about VRBOs and all such accessories.
I'm not going anywhere. I just need to blow my nose, and I don't want to do it on camera. Pardon me.
There you go. Which topic would you like to choose out of the hat?
I was checking to see if he was going to keep the audio on. No, apparently
no. He doesn't pull the legs and Nielsen goes to the bathroom. So which one do you want to add to the conclusion of our conversation?
I don't know. I thought it was a very, very light week for news, quite honestly, at least in the hospitality area.
Yeah. Slow news week.
I thought the brands and product were interesting. They had basically the Lego, using modular hotel rooms.
I have a question about that one.
I've stayed in one before many years ago, and it's fine.
Set up the story, and then I'll ask my question.
Well, basically it's modular construction, right? So you can build the units independently because you know how these, they're relatively standardized, and you know where the plumbing is going to go and the electricity hooks up and things like that. And you can build the room modularly, and then you stack them up and you put a roof on. Well, you pour a foundation, right? You stack these things up, you put a roof on, and you're pretty much done. Maybe you wrap it with some sort of some sort of stone or rock or something like that, and I think you're ready to go.
And a little bit of outside coating, and yeah.
So and you're kind of good. So it's interesting. You can do it very cost effectively. I mean, you do have to get the things shipped and everything, but the actual unit cost versus getting these things done and talk about consistency, you can go drop these in all over the place.
So here's my question, and I'm not trying to be funny or anything like that. What I don't know about the construction side of the hospitality industry is a lot, right? You could write libraries, let alone books, on the things I don't know about the construction side of this. I'm familiar with the idea of cost per key and all that other kind of stuff, right, and some rough ranges and all, but beyond that, I don't know a ton. But I didn't know this was new. The economy space has been doing this. When I worked at Wyndham 15 years ago, we were testing modular for one of our mid-scale brands. We'd actually been doing it with one of our economy brands for at least a few years at the time. And then we were prototyping it. We had a new prototype for which modular was a valid means that we were testing right about the time I left the company, or maybe a couple of years before. So my thought was this is something that was pretty standard and pretty new, pretty common rather. Is that not the case? Because the cost factor is dramatically lower. It's like 60% the cost per key or something like that, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. And actually, there's a group that does quite a bit in the manufactured housing space who's currently developing a fairly substantially sized, multi-hundred room, not economy property. And it'll be very interesting to see. And they're actually even going for a little bit more long-term stay. But you start thinking about, you produce these. Now, you do have kind of the container size issue. That is one of the things that you're going to build them internationally. If you can make it the size of a container, wow,
right.
Boy, you can get these anywhere. You can make them in mass. You can ship them, all sorts of things. The whole transportation network on the planet's, set up for that.
And I'm interrupting for 1 second, but if you ever want to read the best book about what you think is a boring topic, I am a huge fan of a book called The Box. And it's about how containerized shipping changed the world.
Yeah.
And this whole idea of, if you really want to understand what a disruptive technology looks like, it sounds like the book would be boring, but it's actually very well written. It's really interesting. The book is called The Box. I will look up the author.
The industry standards that were set up to be able to take that box and go manufacture it, put it on a ship. Right.
Build chips around the functionality, even build storage, transportation, everything. Yes,
but then drop it onto a truck and all these things where
on a train,
all those sorts of things.
Mark Levinson, The Box: How the Shipping Container Made the World Smaller. I know that it sounds like it's not an interesting topic. This was one of the most fascinating books I'd ever read. And, given how much we talk about technology disrupting industries, you don't think of a standardized shipping container being a disruptive technology. It really, really, really was.
Yeah.
You'll also end up with really strong opinions about the Jones Act.
I didn't read the book, but just statistics about it, because I was always fascinated by the standardization that it created, but that nobody actually knows how many of those were ever been built.
Right.
It's so pervasive and so massive that nobody actually has a quantitative number as to how many of these things have been manufactured. Regardless of the origins of the manufacturing, they still can't quantify how many actually are in production use and have ever been made. But the one thing I have to say about the article is that there is a nuanced difference. To go backwards one step, when I was doing the workshop in Phoenix about a renovation of a hotel, I defined the siloing of the building itself, that it was a vertical build versus a horizontal build. Knowing a little bit about stuff, thinking that was an applicable piece of information for people to assess their There's strategies because it determines when you're doing renovations the impact on your inventory outage as to how it's configured, how it's connected, the power supplies, the water things, and so forth. The big difference, Tim, to some questions you have, yes, this is a relatively old technology in the sense of stacking and putting things together. The newness is now the nuance of how it's combined. The ability to coordinate its interfunctionality, because before the modularity of it was it created a central nest. It was kind of like one big tree trunk goes out lots of places and sends powers and so forth. So when you had to go back in and do anything, it impacted literally much more inventory than the one you were working on, because you may have to shut off large scale.
That's right.
Now, the way they're building them is they're creating the modularity so that the connectivity allows for isolation.
Got it.
Impact other aspects of your inventory while you're working on other aspects.
To use an analogy, I realize this has a very real term in architecture, and I'm misusing a term, but again, what I don't know about this stuff is a lot. But essentially, they're firewalling stuff in different ways.
How they connect to what they're doing. If I have a plumbing issue in Unit 2, I don't have to shut down the whole vertical on the column to get to it. I can isolate it so that I don't have to impact inventory.
Well,
and then renovations.
You can meter it separately to look. I mean, if you really want to be green, and certainly not get in hotels into let's charge how much electricity you're using or what, you can individually monitor and go, hey, Lauren, you're taking those showers and baths and things like that.
Hey! It's just all technology. I'm not looking at porn. I'm simulcasting. I swear.
But however, you mentioned innovation. Okay, one of the great innovations of the hospitality industry, Ellsworth Statler, I believe 1908, invented,
namesake of the Statler Hotel,
invented the plumbing chase, which was let's go. That's the area where you put all the plumbing and electrical stuff that runs vertically up the building. Yeah. So then you can have the rooms come off of it, and you didn't. That's how they figured that stuff out. He was like the first guy to go, hey, if we stack these things, so
the idea of a wet wall and all that kind of stuff, and
the things that you see in the spy movies where they slide down, but and of course that's what you want. And again,
Hotel Pennsylvania,
when you get elevator. Well, that was a Statler. That was the New York Statler.
It was the biggest hotel for a while, but the water boiler, the water tank at the bottom of, because remember, this goes back to the days when electricity was actually isolated by blocks sometimes, that the generation of energy was literally within a radiant of a neighborhood. They didn't have
sure. Like in Die Hard.
Right. Like in Die, yeah. So then
this water shut down the power to the building. You have to shut it down to the whole neighborhood.
Lauren, here's how we explain architecture, Tim. You have to frame it in terms of movies. Yeah, the plumbing chase is just like The Matrix, right? Remember when they went through the wall? And the electricity just like Die Hard.
Again, I want to point out what I don't know about this stuff is a lot. So here's what I know about architecture. It's pretty. Like, I know that there are architects who made pretty buildings, but like how any of this goes up.
This is a blog post of timpeter.com coming up. Everything I know about architecture I learned from movies.
That could be true, because this is not my area of expertise at all. The physical plant is not my thing.
So get this. There's a huge cast iron water reservoir tank in the bottom of the Hotel Pennsylvania that was put there before the building was put above it.
Steam.
It's still in use. Nobody knows how to fix it, and they can't take it offline because it is literally an integrated part of the entire water system in that neighborhood.
Yep.
And
really?
They maintain it, they keep it clean, they keep the water quality and everything else, but it is so old and so big, and in order to get it out, they would literally have to tear the building down to get it out. It's massive, and it's got 4-foot thick iron walls.
Okay, wait, I'm confused by this, because in New York, now this is a thing I do know because I've worked in and around New York for a lot of my career. Typically the water tanks are on the roofs of buildings so that gravity gives you pressure.
Yeah. This is in the bottom.
Pumps to go up. They didn't have that
reservoir. It doesn't mean that the water doesn't get pumped up and then dispersed down. There isn't that. That's not the reservoir top. This is the main reservoir below the hotel. This was an aggregate to the neighborhood of water before it was distributed elsewhere, and they can't take it out of the system until eventually the building comes down. They have to pull everything out and then replace whatever. But it is actually an integrated part of the system. I mean, it's back in the 1920s. So.
I had a midterm project in a hotel engineering class that was about where to put the water. Do you put the water tank on the top or the bottom? Because that stuff's heavy and structurally.
Sure.
But then the pumps, but still you got to pump all the water up there. Right. And that costs stuff. But then if the power goes out, then you still have water to come down. Yeah. It's a really complicated design issue. So
it's amazing because we go to look at it. When we showed it, it's like you're looking at it and there's this massive 2-story high semi-dome face of this iron monolith that goes back farther than you can see, and you're looking at it and it's like they can't take it off. It's
I would
really
have assumed that's where they brew the beer.
I would have been hoping that would have been a beer keg, yeah. But it's funny. There's so many things, as you say, within New York that there's so many neat history things and pieces. I told Hotel Penn years ago they should run a tour.
Absolutely.
There's so many things in that place. They have a cool. They have a floor that's a nostalgic floor.
This is the Hotel Pennsylvania.
Yeah. They have what's called valet doors, and I loved them.
I know what these are. These are cool.
Ellsworth Statler innovation. Absolutely.
Yeah. You put what you want for dry cleaning on a half door on yours. You put it inside basically your door, and then the valet comes along on the hallway, opens the outside of it, and takes out the clothes that you put in there.
Yeah. I thought that was brilliant. Securely put it back in, and you get it when you want. You don't have to be there. You don't get bothered. Great.
I thought that was awesome. I said, why don't they do those anymore? Especially in the high-end places. Like, good golly.
Actually, I stayed at a resort in Mexico. During my leading days, I was fortunate enough to be given a casita, and that's how your breakfast was delivered every morning. There was a cubby, a valet door. Where they would put in, the warm rolls and the pitcher coffee and things along those lines, and you would simply go and open the door on your side, and there was your breakfast waiting for you.
Yeah, the Sunset Key down in Key West, they do that when you're staying at the little cottages, and it is magical. You're on your patio, and you have warm croissants and this and coffee, and you're just looking out over the water. It is a beautiful touch to a high end place to have that kind of service to the room.
Now
you don't have to have the butlers running in and out.
So what's interesting about that is I am always interested in with the older buildings. This is the one thing I do know about architecture, not about how like all the stuff you said, anything that's to do with the plant and like how you get heat and water and electricity from place to place. Not my thing. But the historical elements that led to certain decisions. This is something we used to talk about all the time at Leading. You go back to the early part of the 20th century, hotels didn't employ staff because most luxury hotels, most of the large ones were. I'm sure the Statler was. I'm sure that things like that were.
Well, room and a bath for $1.50. That sounds like luxury to me.
Right, but the reality was, if you were staying at the Ritz or you were staying at the George Cinq or something along those lines, you brought your own staff.
Yeah.
So your butler traveled with you, your ladies' maids traveled with you, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of the way the accommodations were originally configured was, where does the guest sleep, and what are the chambers for their maids and butlers and valets and things along those lines? So just an interesting difference. Whoever first innovated, hey, we're going to have our own chambermaids. That must have been quite an innovation. Really.
That's right.
I'll tell you
probably Statler.
Probably Statler, realistically.
So Tim, I'll tell you how I've used the usage of centralization at a hotel. When I was food and beverage director at a hotel in Houston, they were having very poor attendance to their breakfasts. They just weren't getting capture.
Yeah.
And so I found out that the air was centralized and going up to the entire building and so forth. So I cooked a nice platter of bacon and
set it by the
intake.
Sure.
We had a few calls down saying, "My room smells like bacon," and then everyone's like, "Breakfast picked right up."
No, that's great. That's fantastic. That I could have come up with, but that's we start talking about like how it works, and I got nothing.
Yeah. I don't think 200 some shows in, I'm always wary of repeating stories, but I don't think I've told this one. The another thing under a city that just people don't know about. I guess my first cousin once removed, something like that. the son of my cousin, is a geologist, right? And so he's involved. He works in Seattle, and one of the big things is they got rid of this giant viaduct that separated the waterfront from the city, and they built this giant tunnel with the largest drill bit in the world, right? It was this big project and everything. And so his dad's a bigger nerd than I am. Sort of thing. So I was over a pretty shocking statement, I know. But anyway, he comes and he brings out these plans after he goes, you guys got to check this out. So it's like, okay, what's this? And so he's like, yeah, this is the plan of we're digging this giant tunnel under the city. And his dad goes, what's that? And it's this black line that doesn't have to do with the tunnel. It's above the tunnel. And he goes, damn it, that's what I was going to show you. That's the most interesting part of this. That is the sewer that runs from North Seattle near the University District down to the sewage treatment plants, which are located south of the city. He goes, those were built, well, they don't really know when they were built. Sometime between 1905 and 1920, and something about the Great Seattle Fire. He goes, everybody knows what's in it. Everybody knows that's under pressure. No one knows how it's constructed.
It's and the effluent, I imagine. Is that?
It is. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So he said,
yikes. That's not a thing you don't want to know how it works.
The top priority is to dig this tunnel. But the top priority is actually stay the hell away from this.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's going to be a big mess.
So his geology firm put in all the seismic sensors, which I don't know if it's every 6 feet or whatever. And some of it is also like, did you notice the corner of that building dip a little bit when the drill did?
Yeah.
But it was all over this thing because they're like, if that breaks, there is no backup. There's no repair or replacement or nothing, and that's it. So, scary stuff for infrastructure. There you go.
I know we're off the beaten path a little bit, but I want to bring in something other than the topics that you put together, Robert. Holly turned me on to this. Did she share that link about personality profiling on LinkedIn? That you plug it in. It's a plugin for LinkedIn, and it tells you the personality profile of the person you're looking at to know how to approach them, what their aspects of their personas are. Did you see that?
Wait a second. Let's hold up a second here. Who makes the plugin?
Cambridge Analytica.
Who is giving that company the rights to other people's data, Lauren?
Again, this is completely legal. I'll show you something.
Did the person whose data get passed to this company approve of their data being used for that purpose?
Yes, because it's an assessment of the information that you've placed on your profile. And it's an AI appraisement as to what you are. Yeah.
No, that you've placed on your profile according to the terms of service as offered by LinkedIn.
Yeah. Here you go.
Uh-oh.
And I have to look at it. I don't know what it is because it's a plugin now, so I have to go look and see who made the plugin for it. But here you are, Tim.
A psychopath? Really? It says he's a psychopath. Come on.
Tim is likely to thrive in chaos with a preference for shaping new ideas and taking calculated risks. Quick tip: display energy confidence. Type. He's initiator. DI. Here, you and I are very similar, by the way.
Wow.
Here's your risk tolerance, trusting, optimism. This is all based on what you write, what you share, what's in public domain.
Ooh, it's not in public domain, though. It has been shared. So here's the thing. Let's talk about this for a second.
Because your profile is in public domain on LinkedIn.
It is not.
Yeah, it
is not. Hold on. Let's be very clear about this. If you are not logged into LinkedIn, right?
Mm-hmm.
So pull up an incognito browser.
That's what I'm doing right now.
It's got to be a new incognito browser window.
All right.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, I got you.
Go to LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Search for me.
I did. I got about Tim Peter, about articles by Tim.
Wait, but look what just happened to Lauren.
You have to sign in.
Right. Yeah. It's not public. So this is a thing. This is a thing where
people
hold on.
I'm not signed in and I got it.
Here's the thing. Here's
let's
the thing.
Do this. Let's just do Tim Peter.
So here's the thing: you got to be aware. Public, right? There's a big distinction here that people ought to be aware of: the difference between the public and a public.
Public, yes.
Right? So the public is everybody, right? The public is everybody. A public is a group with whom we have agreed that we're going to make things, that we're going to share our lives with and the like, right? So the things that I've shared on LinkedIn, I've shared with my professional community. But this gets into a really fascinating gray area of law that we're going to see a lot of changes to over the next couple of years.
Oh, yeah.
Right now, whoever's making this plugin, and we should talk about this because this is really critical for marketers to be aware and hotel marketers to be aware. When your customers, when your guests are giving you information, what have they agreed to give you that information for? What rights do you have to that information versus which rights do they retain as a matter of principle? I actually personally don't care because I just assume everything's public everywhere. In all seriousness, I'm mostly trolling you. I also think we create a lot of problems for ourselves when we assume that when people share things with a public, we assume they mean to share it with the public. And that's a dangerous road to go down.
I'm also going to defend my position on this because by what you just said is completely correct. I'm not saying that you said that anybody. You have to be in the format of where you've displayed and shared your content.
Yep.
You've put your content on this platform for the reasons that you have, whatever they may be, business related or not. Okay. And in this forum, this plugin is looking at what you're sharing and assessing more information.
And where does that data go when that plugin?
LinkedIn will shut this down because I was using a plugin for LinkedIn it worked in Sales Navigator as well.
Leonard was shut down. They just changed it. I know that platform, and I didn't use it.
No, it was LinkTub. LinkTub actually helped you migrate the things from LinkedIn to HubSpot because it used to work, and then one or the other upgraded their thing to make it pay or whatever, and somebody built a plug-in to do it, and it worked really well, right? It just kind of screen scraped. You get things now. You get a little pop-up that says, "Hey, you've got this browser plug-in. If you don't unload it, we're going to turn off your profile. You're going to get banned." Right?
And literally, the data that they're pulling here, where does it go? Who's processing this data? Where is it custodied? Right. Do they hold the data after they pull it in? Do they save this?
Well, here's my theory.
For sure?
Yeah, actually, I went and got into the software and went over and actually signed up and went through a profile process with them. And part of the aspect was the data was not being retained on it as it was. This is an AI interpretation.
I get that. But it's something you want to be really careful that we have to think about. Where does this data go and where does it live? And is it being used both within LinkedIn's terms of service, but also if someone were to find out that you were using this data in a way that they weren't comfortable with, even if it's legal, are you creating a problem for yourself as a marketer?
I would take the advice if you look.
By the way, I'd love a copy of this analysis. I'd love to see it.
It's not extracting undisclosed information. It's refining the information that you have to understand.
You're using it for a purpose that I did not consent.
Predictive profile. It is based on what you shared, based on what you write, based on what you're saying about yourself and your connections. This is their interpretive of your personality.
Okay. Number one, if they are scraping this information or looking at, in some sort of automated fashion, information in LinkedIn, relying on your being logged in and having a relationship, they are violating LinkedIn's terms of service flat out. Now, what they may be doing is taking Tim's information, which LinkedIn does post publicly, right? Because you do have a profile. LinkedIn for a while had that turned off, but there is. If you go into, like I just used an Edge browser, which I don't ever use, right? I went into their incognito mode or whatever, in private mode, whatever, the Edge browser called, and there is Tim, and it says at least about articles that he's done, activity, experience.
But it won't give you my entire profile.
No. And then at the bottom it says to view Tim's full profile, go do this. Now, but it's more robust than I thought, right? It does have all the groups you're affiliated with. education, the whole job, job history, things like that. And you have to join to see it's only last three activities, last three articles, things like that, but still pretty robust. Not as good as if you're logged in, but maybe they're getting around it a little bit that way, going, oh no, we aren't scraping the logged in stuff. But I bet they're scraping the logged in stuff.
Well, and the key point here is, and Lauren, the reason I'm making such a thing about this is we talk about this all the time. This is data being used in a way that I did not consent to. I, the customer, I want to be really clear. I want to be really clear for anybody watching the show. Personally, I don't care. I assume that anything that gets posted anywhere will become public at some point, whether I want it to or not.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I live my life. The things that I say to my Echo back here, I assume could be made public at some point, right? So I take that as a given. What I am saying is that a customer could say, yeah, but I didn't say it was okay for you to use my personal information this way. And this is a place where I think marketers get themselves in a lot of trouble lots of times because they look at this data. Lauren, this is when you build the ship, you build the shipwreck moment, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
You're looking at this as a ship, and I'm saying this is also a shipwreck.
Absolutely.
And could easily be a thing where customers could say, I get that you're saying it's all legal. I get that you're saying they've worked with LinkedIn in terms of the terms of service. This creeps me out that you're doing like a personality profile on me when I didn't give you permission to.
Right.
Okay. I understand your concern. I'll tell you this. We profile people in every communication we do.
Sure.
We do that.
Sure.
And you can't tell me that I can't, if I see somebody and I've yet to engage them, haven't already stereotyped them, categorized them, and determined how I'm going to communicate with them.
But only on the information that you can.
You can't control it. You can't walk up to me without knowing me and say, don't judge me. And before I even say, even if I even wanted to say something to you. Okay?
Right. But
this is the same in my mind.
In your mind. Is the same in the customer's mind.
Right. The issue with personalization is each individual has their own creepy line.
Yep.
Okay. You don't get to decide where their creepy line is. Each individual decides on their own, and that's where the problem is.
Sales Navigator fit into this? Then I'm going to switch the screen up because
hang on. Actually, you need to go back to the page of how to deal with Tim. We need to read this and study it so we can interact with him more effectively.
I'm totally serious. I would love a copy of their assessment just to pair it up with like other assessments and see how close it is.
Yeah. Here's the thing: it could be dead wrong. It's my choice to whether to accept the data or not. It's not yours to
No, Lauren, no, Lauren, no. It is my data. GDPR, privacy by default, privacy by design, right? California Consumer Privacy Act, privacy by default, privacy by design. I, the customer, I, the consumer, screw those words. I, the human being, have a right to my personal information being used only in ways that I have explicitly said yes.
Okay.
And that I am comfortable with.
Three things you just said: your data, your express consent, and your ability to determine usability.
Yep.
Lauren isn't finding any federal statutes regarding that, so screw you.
And when I say just because it's legal is not a great leg to stand on.
Tell me, please, so I understand, because you know how I am about the letter of the law, not its intent.
Well, that's where you get in trouble, man.
That's right.
No, I follow the law. I follow the law. And
but you're saying the letter, not the spirit.
Does not violate. That does not violate it.
Yes, it does.
Break it down for me. Show me how each one get violated.
Who is that company?
Huh?
Who is that company?
Who's the process? Yeah, that's a problem.
That's a problem. I
just have to go look it back up.
No. You're asking
Tim doesn't know who that company is.
So that's not a violation that the company has that data. You put it into a context.
No, Lauren, no. You asked about the letter of the law. Here's the letter of the law.
You on a platform that is not your own, put content that you put in.
Hold on.
About you. You put it
every time I try to answer your question, you start talking.
Go ahead.
You said, tell you from a letter of the law perspective where the problem is.
Mhm.
I have consented to give access to this data to LinkedIn.
Yes.
I have consented to give access to this data to other LinkedIn members to see my information.
Yes.
Right.
This company falls
member of
into
LinkedIn.
neither of those buckets. They are
It's
not
they do.
LinkedIn.
processing that information.
They are not
Yes.
LinkedIn, and they are not people who are members of LinkedIn.
Yeah, they are. They're a member of LinkedIn in order to get to it. So yeah, they are.
No, they're not.
Yeah, they are.
They are
You,
providing-
a member, gave them access to that
They are
information.
providing an automated tool on LinkedIn's platform, which is prohibited by LinkedIn's terms of service.
And I never gave that company rights, either explicit, certainly not explicitly,
No.
and for all practical purposes, not implicitly, to access that information.
The information that they have is created on theirs, not yours. It's based on your information that you've provided on a platform that they have
To
access to.
Boom. That's
yes,
the point.
but okay,
No.
let's forget
That
the
information
privacy
isn't
stuff.
accurate or yours.
Lauren, let me ask you a
Because
question.
it's-
Wait,
Forget
let
the
me ask you a
privacy
question.
stuff. Wait, hang on one thing. Forget the privacy stuff. Is LinkedIn getting paid for this? No. That's LinkedIn's going to go, stop it.
And actually, I'm going to come
Because
at
they
it
don't
another way.
LinkedIn plugins from a variety of places that LinkedIn perfectly allows to have happen. They're
No,
ones that
LinkedIn-
Lauren, let me ask you a question.
Whack-a-mole on this.
Think about it this way. And I admit this is not a perfect analogy, okay? But think
Wait,
about it
hang
this
on.
way.
Wait. Sorry. What's the name of this? Let me find out. I'll go install it and see, and I'll tell you exactly what the problems are.
Right.
Okay.
Let me go find
Because
Holly's
it's a
email. She sent me the link to it.
It's a browser extension, not a LinkedIn plugin. Really big difference there. Really
Right. I
monumental
gave permission
difference.
to LinkedIn, and I gave permission implicitly to LinkedIn's other members.
Right. I pay $80 a month for Sales Navigator that gives
As
me
do I, by the way.
of crap,
Right.
Which LinkedIn has monetized, a lot of which used to be free, right? So yeah, they got me to pay a lot of money to do it because it's of high value. That's different than that's a subscription, or LinkedIn is getting that
By the way,
revenue.
it's still
This is not.
It's still data that people have given to LinkedIn.
Right.
This is another company taking data from LinkedIn, to whom I, the person, have not given information. Lauren, let's look at it this way, right? Let's say, do you use Apple Pay?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right. So you have given Apple your credit card number, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. With you. I'm looking for the link.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right. If Apple let another company access your credit card number, right, for any reason, right, without you explicitly saying I'm okay with that, that's a problem, right?
In the context of what you're saying, yes, but this is not the same comparison. I'm thinking that.
It's exactly the
It's
same
pretty
thing.
personal information.
It's fairly
It's the same
personal information that you have given Apple rights to hold, right? For the specific purposes that Apple told you they will hold this information. And then they said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to let a lot of people take access to this credit card number, right? Because we want them to have access to it because they're doing something interesting. That would be a huge problem.
Here's my analogy to this.
Or even purchase history. Not
Here's my analogy
even
to this.
purchase history.
Go to a conference.
Purchase history would be
huge.
huge.
Hold on. You paid to go to a conference.
Yep.
You're in the audience. You're watching a speaker.
Yep.
And you're sitting back going, he's not very good. He's stuttering over his words. He repeats word whiskers. He's walking slunch. The context isn't there. I don't like his hairstyle. I think he doesn't really know what he's talking about. Now, hold on. I've voiced an opinion on a paid content piece. There's to your point. You went onto a platform of LinkedIn and shared your information. I was a participant of that information. Now, I wonder if I posted that on social saying, this speaker's not all that good. I just shared confidential information, according to your context, on something I paid and only expressed my context of being the speaker on that stage.
Oh, that's a bad analogy.
And I shared it on a social platform.
That is a false analogy.
No, it's exactly how I see this.
Oh, no, it's an utterly false analogy. It's an utterly false analogy.
The context, everything you just said, I paid for exclusive content. I only people that I'm sharing the content off the stage with are the people that are in that room, and and that person in the room took that that parameter of that confidential information and publicly displayed it out as an opinion on information that I didn't give them express or implied capabilities to share.
Nope. No.
Every one of your
Your analogy holds no water.
It's the same as what I'm saying.
No, it's not, Lauren. It's not at all.
Yes, it is.
It's not at all.
Yes. Now, if it was on a closed group, no.
Wait, Lauren, you keep saying no, and you haven't let me explain why that analogy does not work.
The credit card pay one is not the same thing.
If your purchase history, if Apple shared your purchase history, right?
Okay.
Would that be a problem for you?
Actually, probably not. But yeah, I'd say that would be.
You imagine it would be a problem for most people? I
was not aware that they would be sharing it. For your point.
There you go. So they're taking data that you have given them rights to. They've taken information that you've given them rights to, and they are sharing it with another company without your express consent.
Which is exactly my conference analogy. So yeah.
No, it's not. No, it's not at all. It's not at all. Here's the difference. The difference is, let's define our people here. I am the speaker, right?
Okay.
You are the audience.
Yes.
You are the person in the audience. I am speaking, right?
Mm-hmm.
You post an opinion on social media that I saw a speaker at a conference who was crap.
And I shared information that you shared on your show, on your speaking. I shared what you were sharing with us.
Okay.
Well, depends when you say you shared what I shared with you.
You gave me 5 points of success, and I put them right on social.
Fine.
Okay.
What's the problem?
I thought you were, I had an opinion about your speaking capabilities.
Is the conference open to the public? Can anyone go to the conference?
You be paid.
Well,
Right.
if you did it at the Allen and Company conference in Sun Valley, Idaho, every summer, yes, you would be in deep shit for doing something like that.
Well, it depends, right? It also depends on the rules of the conference. I actually moderate a conference quarterly that they follow what is called the Chatham House Rule. The Chatham House Rule is you're free to share anything that you hear at the conference. You're free to share anything. You simply can't attribute it to a specific individual. Mm-hmm. So I can say, hey, I was talking to, a director at a Fortune 500 company who said X. What I can't say is, the person at Marriott or the person at FedEx said X, right?
So let me bring it to.
So I would be violating. I wouldn't be breaking the law. I would be violating the terms of the community, right? The rules of the conference. You giving an opinion about my information, particularly. Also, you have to remember. Let's pull in legal stuff here for a second. Not that I'm a lawyer, but when you talk about defamation and things along those lines, right? You talk about slander and libel and all of that kind of stuff, right? There is a distinction between is it opinion or is it fact? There's also a difference between is it true or is it untrue, right? The truth is a defense against libel, right? And slander.
Well, there's truthiness. If you feel that it's true, then it is.
But if you're disputing my facts, and you can point other facts that are, that are literal facts, as a problem, there's no issue there. If I'm speaking publicly on a stage, you can't defame me from that perspective. And I'm getting into gray area here because I'm not a lawyer. Nobody should be taking this as legal advice. By saying, I think this guy's a jackass, right? Because that's clearly opinion. So the distinction here is you're taking one person's opinion or one person's thesis and you're debating it in a public square versus taking people's personal information that they have expressly given consent to a limited set of people to use for a limited set of purposes and using it for a purpose that no one has consented to. Any speaker on a stage at any conference takes it as a given that anything that they're saying in a public forum can be expressed by other folks in a public forum.
Not a public forum.
No, it is a public forum.
No, it's not. You had to pay to be there. It's not a public forum.
But anybody could pay to be there.
You had to be given permission to be there.
But no. You paid to be there. No, Lauren, no. Okay.
Let me bring you into reality of context of what I'm pointing out to. At the beginning of every HSMA conference we have the admission of don't do this, please. No recordings, no such and such.
No,
that's a different thing.
No, they don't say that. No,
Hold
no,
on.
they do the antitrust.
They do the antitrust thing.
Dude, no recording is very clearly stated at the beginning of everything we do.
Right. You know why they're doing? You know why they're?
I'm the one that's embarrassed at the front while I'm holding my camera up. All right.
You know why they want no recording?
Because they don't want to allow it. Because the context is for those who paid for it.
No, they don't want to allow it because they make money by selling access to that information.
They've never resold. But anyway, besides from that,
but that's the reality. Focusrite wouldn't tell you, who puts their conference online every year in video, wouldn't tell you don't record this because they already make it available for free.
Look, that's
not breaking the law. That's violating the terms of service and the community.
Hold on a second. Right. Here's the conflict of the conversation of what I'm telling you as the analogy for this, is that then they solicit you to share your participation in the activities going on, where you're taking a snapshot of a slide that somebody put up in a deck and saying, Tim made a great example of 5 things to do to save the world.
Yeah.
Okay. Yet meanwhile, everybody in that room has been violated. Why? Because they spent money to be there to get your information that is now being freely given away by me taking a picture of your slide and sending out to everybody I'm talking to.
Wait, I'm confused by what your point is here. I'm so sorry. I'm missing whether you're saying you did a good thing or a bad thing by sharing.
I did a bad thing by sharing.
I don't think so. I, the speaker, don't think so.
And neither do I with this app.
No. There's a huge difference there.
Nope.
There's a
because
huge
it's what you
there.
What you do with what you're looking as information rather than what it is that you're looking at it to interpret it. What would happen? Okay, let me ask you something. Hold on just a second. And to Tim's to Robert's point, I don't know. When I went and reviewed the terms that I had when I signed up with them to just try this thing, is that they're not keeping the information to this. But to that end, just from that perspective, I'm shoving off to the side. When you put your information on an environment that you're willing to put the information on LinkedIn, and I am a willing participant in LinkedIn, if I put a spreadsheet together and took the 5 places you went to school at and the 3 places you worked at and the 10 articles you read and the 15 podcasts that I watched, and I made a spreadsheet of data and I wanted to correlate how I thought you did about certain things, and I wanted to assess your personality based on what information I was gleaning from that, I'm doing just as bad as this app, according to you.
Correct. And let's be really clear why, right?
As much as me walking up to the street looking at you going, he's not as tall as I thought, and he's a little skinnier than I thought, and his voice isn't as deep as when I hear him on the radio. And I'm making the same assessment because I'm taking data that I'm getting in and determining what I want to interpret from that data.
Yep.
It's a tool. Okay. Yep. As much as an Excel sheet's a tool, this plugin for me is looking at the person as a tool.
There's a big difference there. There's a huge difference there.
What's the huge difference of that?
You're handing the data to somebody else to do it. That's the difference. So there's 2 problems here. One, Lauren, you're absolutely right. People make decisions and judgments and all the time about all kinds of things. What are we wearing? How tall is the person? Are they skinny? Are they heavy? Are they tall? Are they short? Are they whatever? Are they a various race? Are they whatever? Right? Mm-hmm. Are they male or a woman? They make all kinds of decisions. Right?
It's the nature of humanity. Yep.
I understand that. I fully understand that. But you are making a decision for yourself based on those data points, based on whatever your inherent biases and experiences may be, right? You are making, and I don't mean biases in a negative sense. I mean, I went to St. Benedict's Prep in Newark, New Jersey. I think it is a wonderful high school. When I meet somebody who's a Benedict's man, I'm immediately going to have an inkling to like them because I have a bias towards other folks who went to Benedict's because it's a great place and clearly you must be a pretty good guy. Right. Also, G. Gordon Liddy went to St. Benedict's Prep. So clearly it's not universally true, but my bias would say.
I wonder if I shared that Excel sheet with Robert.
Right. That's a huge problem.
That is.
Really? So tell me what referrals for business when Robert wants to hire you and he asks me about you.
There's a joke about GDPR, which is, hey, do you know any GDPR consultants and any good GDPR consultants? Yes, I do. Can you give me their email address? No, I can't.
but here's
you're sharing information
about you. And I refer to my Excel sheet and so forth.
But hold on. No, if you give Robert your opinion, you're giving them a derived output. If you give Robert my LinkedIn profile, and Robert's not a LinkedIn member, you're giving Robert my data. You're giving Robert my personal information.
I'll give you that point, but
that's the problem.
LinkedIn access. It doesn't require my access.
But that's the problem. The problem is you're giving this data to a third party. That's the problem. If it goes back to the whole idea of you use Apple Pay, and if Apple gave your spending data to somebody else, right? You, in all likelihood, would have a problem with that, right? And even if you wouldn't on an individual basis, the customer gets to define where the creepy line is, and a lot of people would say that was creepy.
How do you know? How would you know? If I looked up on Google all Tim Peter pictures.
Now, no. Now you're asking a dangerous question, Lauren. You're saying if I don't know it's okay for you to be creepy?
I'm not making that line. What I'm saying is, if I look up pictures of Tim Peter on Google, did you give permission for all those pictures to be out there? Nope, you didn't.
Hold on one second. It really depends on your point of view on that. If you look at the EU's right to be forgotten law, I did not. If I have a problem with any given picture that's out there, this is actually a big gray area in law right now. Right? Here's the distinction.
I'm not saying whether you know or no is a line to draw.
No.
I'm not making that point. I'm making the point is that the amount of public data.
Oh no, I get that.
There,
I get that.
Okay.
But I shared data with LinkedIn for an explicit purpose. By the way, remember, me personally, Tim Peter has said, I assume that anything that I put anywhere is going to turn out to be public at some point. I assume the things that I say to the Echo device in my house will be public at some point. Right?
No.
But if I sign up for LinkedIn and I have given them data for an explicit, let's come at this from a completely different angle. Let's bring this back to the hospitality industry.
Now, if you came over to my house and my wall was covered with Tim Peter pictures, that's creepy.
That's what I'm saying. Right.
But they're all public pictures. So,
but if you used a bot, you built a piece of software that went out and searched the web for every reference it could find about me as an individual, and the names of my family members and their ages and their dates of birth and their job histories and all of this kind of stuff, right? You might be doing nothing illegal. You would still be creepy as hell.
Oh, I don't disagree with you at any level on that. But what you're saying by the way you're interpreting the rules for inclusiveness is there should be never a private investigator. There should never be.
I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying that at all.
Yes, you are. Because I'm
I'm
violating your privacy by pulling out data that you weren't willing to offer or wanting to share.
No. Wait, what's the purpose of the private investigator? And don't forget, the private investigator is licensed to do so by the state.
But you didn't give him permission to find out all your stuff, to go through your trash and find the bills and all this other stuff.
She is clearly doing this stuff.
And it wasn't legal. Well, the law didn't hire them. A private person hired them.
Who was the private person?
Who knows?
Is it a spouse? Who
knows? Maybe it's just an ardent admirer that wants to know
which is then a creep.
And did you notice that person going through your trash? No.
No, but the point here is not Lauren, again, I'm not a lawyer. The purpose here is not the point between what is legal and what is illegal. It is what is creepy and what is not creepy. Right?
I'm with you on that.
If you're a hotel marketer, right? Guests have given you information about their stay data, implicitly and explicitly, right?
Yes.
A guest stays with you.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. If you started selling that data to a third party, or even giving that data to a third party,
it's a Captain Obvious statement. I mean, that's a difference.
But it's the same thing.
It's not the same. It's
exactly the same thing.
No, a private investigator hired by whomever to research data that you weren't willingly, implied, or explicitly giving.
No, I gave
is
data
still
to LinkedIn.
A violation of the context of what you're saying.
I gave data to LinkedIn for an explicit purpose.
And it's being used exactly for that purpose.
No, it's not. LinkedIn doesn't make that software.
Actually, I can't answer to that. I have no idea.
I've been quiet here because I agree 100% with Tim on all of this.
I know you do. And to be honest with you guys, I'm sorry. I don't mean to lead on about this. I agree a tremendous amount of what you're saying. I'm being more of an edish today. I mean, I wouldn't push the line near as far as what I'm trying to push the conversation. Let's put it that way. But
Okay.
I do hold true to some aspects of, I believe that sometimes an overinterpretation of the law to an extreme level is
Not
as
the
dangerous as
law.
an underinterpretation of it.
But you're missing my point, Lauren. You're missing my point, and
No,
I apologize.
I mean, I understand exactly what you're trying to say.
No. Hold on. My point is, marketers get themselves in trouble
Oh, I agree with that point.
by using data that for purposes that nobody ever agreed to. We got sued when I worked for a company.
With you.
Hold on,
I'm actually in harmony with you on that one.
Okay,
like I said, I'm pushing this conversation beyond the bounds of what I would actually ever do with these things, because you know that I literally look at granularity on these things. But I do hold. I'm not totally being opposite of what I believe in. There is an aspect of what I'm talking about that I still hold true. An overinterpretation of the law, an extremism to any usage of a law is as bad as an overinterpretation of it. No, because I do believe that in the context of the absolute certainty that you're defining, okay, then literally investigators shouldn't exist. And never should content be shared.
No, you're putting words in my mouth that I never said.
No. I'm saying that. I'm saying that.
Right, but you're making what's called a slippery slope argument, Lauren. And a slippery slope argument is a logical fallacy, my friend. I love you dearly, but on this one, you're arguing a logical fallacy.
I'm in the neutrality of a centralization. I don't believe in the polarity of this. I believe that there's that midway point of understanding.
I do too. Let's be very clear. I also think we have to be very careful when we are sharing our customers' information, right, with people that they did not give rights for that information to be shared. Fundamentally,
that is an uncontrolled. Maybe I'm tainted by the reality of knowing that that's a fallacy.
Right, but it's not a fallacy if your customers find out and sue you for it, and it's not
if you're not even aware of its share. If you're not even aware of it's being shared, it's the painful part.
Oh, but Lauren, but you, the user, have to assume that at some point your customers could find out. Look at the data breaches of Starwood.
I'll give you a very technical, specific example of this. And this is for anybody listening to this to do look at this. When you sign up with certain programs that will do additional marketing for you, retargetings and so forth, okay? They give you a script to insert into your own information. If you look at that script, that is blindly taking every piece of information you're getting and putting it in their hands.
Did you know? Hold on.
Did you know?
Well, no, it depends on the terms of the script. So,
no.
That
script pulls everything.
No, it does not. It depends on the script, Lauren. Wait, Lauren, I'm an advisor to a software company that makes one of these scripts. We literally de-anonymize all the data.
I'm not going to call company names out, but every company out there right now that is doing this stuff for you, their script is
factually inaccurate.
Nope.
Every company that is out there doing this right now does not collect every piece of data everywhere.
Okay.
Let's be really clear about that.
Every company in the universe, I'll say every company I've worked with does this.
There are quite a few companies that absolutely do that. There are companies that do not. And you as a marketer should know what data they are collecting and which data they are not.
About it. When I walk in with people and they see, and I see the script in there,
one of the
first things I do in the audit process is redefine that script to only pulling the points of data that are contractually necessary to confirm the relationship that they agree to.
Because you get this and you're being smart. What I'm saying is the folks who are watching this show haven't necessarily thought about that.
That's what I'm saying. Point being, the sad part is a lot of people don't know that they are inadvertently sharing data they didn't even know that they were sharing.
Like using a browser plugin that grabs things from LinkedIn.
Not that one.
Well, or
I love this. Honestly, thank you. I mean, this is a lot of fun. I'm arguing more than.
As we mentioned, I think in last week's show, Ed pointing out that Hyper, who got into a lot of trouble with this, that Marriott was a major user of this stuff, right? Because you don't know. Okay, I've done a little research on Crystal Knows, who is the company behind this plugin. And this is a fascinating case study. I agree completely with Tim on all of the creepy line and GDPR and everything. Here's what Crystal Knows is doing. They aren't exactly, it's actually Crystal Talk Note or it's Crystal Knows. Okay. Yeah. It's crystalknows.com. Crystal Knows has some interesting stuff when you look at the rights that by default that the plugin gives you. Number one, it has permissions to read your browsing history on all sites. I don't know if you have a problem with that or not, but that's fairly broad.
That's very broad.
The company, though, who's funding Crystal Nose, founded in 2014. Oh, no. It's more interesting than that. Salesforce Ventures, HubSpot, Birchmere Ventures, and the corporate executive board, which was acquired by Gartner. Right? So this has some kind of mainstream folks behind them.
Yeah.
So very, very interesting. These guys are specifically towing the creepy line, right? Yep. That is where they are playing. Very similar to what Cambridge Analytica was doing. They were towing the creepy line, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I brought it. Really, honestly, it's why I brought it in for the conversation.
Eric Schmidt said years ago, Eric Schmidt, the chairman of Alphabet, former chairman now, right?
Yes.
Nonetheless, former chairman of Alphabet, which is the parent company of Google, famously said at a conference years ago, it is Google's stated intent that they're going to walk right up to the creepy line and then they're going to stop. But they want to get as close to the creepy line as they possibly can.
And continually test what that creepy line is.
For sure. And I want to be really clear because I want to push back on a statement you made a moment ago, Lauren, in the sense of, an overinterpretation of the law. My issue is not with people when they push the creepy line. My issue is when people either push or cross the creepy line without ever giving it a moment's thought.
Right.
The point, if you make a conscious decision that, hey, this is creepy, and hey, there could be consequences if my customers were ever to find out I was doing stuff like this. And I'm okay accepting those potential consequences if that occurs. Well, no, hear me out. I'm not saying I would necessarily make the same decision as you, but at least you followed a solid decision-making process to say, I am aware of the risks and I am making a conscious decision to accept or mitigate those risks, right?
That sounds like the bottom line qualifications to be a member of the Facebook board of directors.
Oh, by the way, I think it's one of the reasons I don't trust Facebook overly much, because I think that they always choose to do the wrong thing. And I don't think they're evil. I think they're stupid. I think their problem is they look at the world through a certain set of lenses, and all they ever see is the ship. They don't ever see the shipwreck. Not because I think they're ill-intentioned, not because I think they're cruel, not because I think they're sitting there rubbing their hands together thinking, ha, 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 ha. I think it's that they are so blinded by the possibilities of the ship that they never consider the fact that there could be any kind of shipwreck.
Oh, ever. Well, no, I think they intentionally do not look. They have some very, very bright people who have intentionally built a set of blinders.
However you get to that result.
For the valuation of
drinking the Kool-Aid.
However you get to that result, they do not see the shipwreck.
Move fast.
The point I'm trying to make, Tim, first off, I agree with everything you're saying, and yes, and to all those points. And then one of the reasons why I want to throw this in, because when I first went over it, I did this little 10-thing trial because I want to see what it was.
Sure,
okay. But to me, the distinction of what we're talking about in my mind about the overextension of the legalities of where you're talking about walking over a creepy line intentionally still is in the parameter of not being illegal. Never, that's a finite
goal. Of course.
This is in the yet to be defined legalities of its usability and whether you're crawling up past the creepy line. I would say the distinction of some ways that these laws can be put to extremism is the difference between extreme PC and just common etiquette. Common etiquette is courtesy and kindness.
Sure.
Extreme PC is a paralysis of communication that you can't even refer to anything that is in any way have a potential of upsetting the person you're communicating with. That's the extremism variation that I'm talking about.
And I wouldn't dispute that necessarily. I would also say I go back to this concept of duty of care. Mm-hmm. We are custodians of this customer's data, right? We should be looking at it, I believe, from the perspective of, are we using... Julie Ask of Forrester Research has a great line that I use all the time of the difference between Big Brother and Big Mother. Am I using this data because I'm big mother and I'm doing it in a way that's going to be helpful to my customer and I'm going to be helpful to my guest? Or am I using this data because I can and it's neat? And one of those to me is okay, and one of those to me, and I won't make it black and white, that one is okay and one is awful. I will say one of those tends to be more okay and one of those tends to be more creepy and problematic, right?
Well, yeah, and it's barring the freedom of art. Let me say, one of Andy Warhol's famous things was the Campbell soup, right?
Right.
Okay. Did Campbell soup give them permission? Him permission? No.
That's a different thing. That's fair use.
From an artist's perspective and so forth and things.
No. This is
their intellectual property.
It's a key distinction, though, because fair use, and this is something I know a lot about because I went to music school, and music obviously is all about IP. Fair use for purposes of parody, criticism, and things along those lines is legally allowed under the Constitution. Not even the laws, but literally the Constitution. You said that,
because my next statement would be to take a picture of you that is in public and of domain and make an Andy Warhol out of it and put it on my website.
No. This gets into an interesting point, though, because first of all, I will admit this is where my morality and my biases will come into full effect, right? I make a huge distinction between a label on a can of soup and a human being.
All right, Marilyn
Monroe.
Monroe.
I think there is a non-trivial difference.
How about Marilyn Monroe's picture with Andy Warhol?
Marilyn Monroe is an interesting case because she's a public figure, right? And no. The law. Hold on. No.
It was a public picture of you.
Wait. Hold on a second. Right? Lauren, this is actually a fascinating topic that gets into all kinds of things.
I know, I'm loving this. I'm pushing these things for just because I love the conversation.
No. You do realize I talked about libel and slander earlier, right? You can't defame a famous person. That's a legal standard, right? Mm-hmm. If I say Tom Cruise is an idiot, right? I can't defame him. One, because it's my opinion, right? Second, he's so famous that my ability to tromp on his fame is basically muted by the fact that he's famous, right? You could possibly defame him if you made such egregious accusations of him murdering specific individuals and providing some sort of God knows what. That is true. That's why I say I'm not a lawyer. But it is very, very difficult to defame a famous person. And there is, in our law and in our common practice, a distinction between people who are famous and ordinary citizens. I'm going to take this a slightly different way, right? I'm going to take this. Tom Cruise killed Tupac, and I've got the video. Right. And then showing that video of him in the act.
What is the qualifier for fame?
Another qualifier. Well, by the way, that's that. There is no qualifier. It's based on specific standards, right? Because I am famous, literally by some standards. If you went on Twitter and replied to me on Twitter and said something that was technically defaming me, right? I might not be able to prove that I was defamed because I have 4,000 followers on Twitter and I may be sufficiently famous in that specific environment that I can't be defamed in that specific case, right? This gets into really weird and interesting things that there's a lot going on these days with this right now. Devin Nunes, the congressman, is suing people. There's a Twitter account called Devin Nunes' Cow. And Devin Nunes, who is a congressperson, is suing this Twitter handle, this person, because he's saying he's being defamed. And there's a very real argument here of A, he's a member of Congress, so he's a public official. He's a public official, literally. B, he is famous in a certain way. And C, does any of this stuff fall into opinion and things like that? Let me take a slightly different take on this, right? If you were to follow Tom Cruise around with a camera and take pictures of him every time he walked in and out of a restaurant, is that okay?
Personally, no, but yes, it's in public domain.
Okay. But I mean,
there's a gray area there.
It's a gray area, right? Because Tom Cruise is very famous. Right?
Well, he's in public.
In a public.
If I walk into his house and do pictures, that's a whole different story.
No, I get that completely. I get that completely. Okay, if you followed me around, if you followed my wife around, if you followed my daughter around, and took a picture of that individual going into and out of every building they walked into and out of.
Okay, Lauren,
legally you're okay.
Not bring that into it. Okay,
but legally you're okay. But in reality, you're creepy, right? And clearly, the line is somewhere between those two realities, right?
I completely agree with you on this. I'm saying this, but by the same token, to the extremism of the law, I never asked permission to use your picture to put it on the website for this show. Now, it's an implied legality-wise by your participation in the show, just like when I do videos with people, by them participating in the video. Okay, when I need a release of somebody's in a video, I say, can you just tell me while I'm recording, hey, it's okay to use me in the video. So I have that as a record of control for what they're into. Now, here's the thing. For something to be copyrighted, you need 99 copies. That's still a law.
No, that's not, Lauren. That is not true at all.
No, it is true. It is
Lauren, no. With due respect, the things I know about copyright law is a lot. I may not know crap about architecture, but I know a lot about it.
Copyrighted, it has to be. We have to have that minimum distribution. No. Please tell me the update. Tell me the update because I literally just did this.
You can copyright any. You can copyright anything
from the moment of creation. First of all, let's be very clear. When you copyright something, and God, now I'm going to turn into a lawyer. But when you and I'm not a lawyer. This should not be legal advice to anybody. When you create, copyright belongs to the creator at the moment of creation. What you are doing is registering your claim to that copyright, so that if there is later dispute about when the thing was birthed, you can actually point to that.
Yes,
all you're doing is register. There needs to be a physical representation of the copyrighted work. So it could be virtual. Or virtual work or whatever. But I mean, if
you also have to have a distribution component to that. You can't just have, I wrote this and I kept
that is not true. That is not true. No. Lauren, I don't know where you're getting this, but that is far from true. Yeah. If someone, so let's say I wrote a song. I write lots of songs, right? Let me rephrase that. I write lots of pieces. The whole world sing. I write lots of pieces of songs. I rarely finish songs because I don't have the time to finish many songs. But I write pieces of songs. Okay, but let's say right now, sitting on my hard drive. This isn't even a hypothetical. Right now, sitting on my hard drive, I have multiple completely recorded and produced tracks of songs that I've created, complete and utterly finished. Okay. If a song comes out on the radio tomorrow that sounds like my song, for me to prove copyright and sue successfully, 3 things have to be true. I think it's 3. The first is that I have to have some evidence that my work predated the work that I claim violates my copyright.
That's correct.
Okay. The second one, and maybe this is where you're getting the 99 copies thing from. The second is that the person would have had to have the opportunity to have heard my song.
Distribution.
But hear me out. But it doesn't mean that has to be 99 copies. It means they would have had to have had the opportivity. It's
a printed thing about printed context is what the 99 copy thing was, that I was looking into.
No. But I mean, if I sent somebody if I wrote a script and sent a script to somebody,
you distributed it.
But I sent them 1 copy. There's no 99 copies.
Right. No.
I mailed them a copy. By the way, do you know why most unsolicited manuscripts get sent unopened?
Yeah, no, you're right.
Why? Because they don't want anybody to say later, they mailed me a copy of this and now I'm legally liable.
Right. You have to prove the aspect of receivership. So what I'm saying is, like, say for instance, you took one of those songs and put it into a safety deposit box.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the same scenario came back up again. You have to prove that safety deposit box was never touched by you prior to, you put it in there prior to the music going out.
No.
I just made your point. I just told you exactly what you told me.
Well, no. If I registered the copyright, I don't need to put it in a safety deposit box.
No. I'm saying you wrote a song and you put it in a safety deposit box.
And I can prove that it was never touched.
Right. Then you can prove it. You have to prove the historical. I do that with, I went through all this.
To prove the provenance, but But if you register the copyright, you don't have to prove that provenance. And if you don't register the copyright, proving that provenance is actually much harder.
And when you go in,
and they still have to have had access to it.
Right, you have to just show that you distributed the content to go apply for copyright.
No. To apply for copyright, you don't have to have distribution at all. If I take one of those songs on my hard drive right now and I send a copy of that to the United States Patent and Trademark Copyright Office,
you distributed it.
But I sent them. I sent one copy to one place. Yeah. It's 99 copies is not a thing. I don't know where you got it.
No. Now here's the thing. Wait, if let's say the Rolling Stones' new album has a little segment of music, right? That Tim then goes and says, "Hey, I wrote that in 1995." Yeah, you may be able to say that he did it, but if there's no way you can prove that they ever had
access to hear it, I'm going to lose.
You're going to lose. Yeah, but they can still say, yes, you're right. You did that back then, but it doesn't really matter because nobody heard it. Right.
Exactly.
So you can. That's
because they do also in copyright allow for the thing of what is known as spontaneous independent creation.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So it's possible. In music, there's only 12 notes. In the alphabet, there's only 26 letters. I mean,
George Harrison lost his claim of "My Sweet Lord," very popular, great song, versus "He's So Fine" by I think it was Shirelles or something. Yeah. I can't remember who had that very famously, where he did not really intentionally copy that song. Very likely, they proved that he probably heard it.
Oh, right? And that is the last point, by the way. There also has to be, and this is where the law is a gray area, just like a lot of laws have gray area written into them on purpose. When you talk about reasonable accommodations under the ADA, it's meant to be gray because the idea is reasonable accommodation for a 100-year-old historic building independent hotel and reasonable accommodation for a brand new construction are going to be different realities, right? So literally that is left gray intentionally. So the other thing you have to prove in copyright, and please don't quote me on the words here because I don't have the words correct, but basically you have to prove that there is, similarity, substantial similarity between them. Right. So where it's usually the way it usually works in the music area, which is the area I know the most about, is they play they'll bring in musicologists and things like that, but they'll play the two songs for the jury. And if the jury say, well, it kind of sounds like it, and the other two things are true, you're guilty. Right.
Well, one of the reasons why I brought all this up, and we went down a weird path or whatever, was, okay, you're famous for saying, ship and shipwreck. Okay.
Yeah.
And
Paul DeLillo, by the way, since we're talking copyright, is the French philosopher who actually originated that phrase. I did not invent that phrase.
You're really the one that brings the context in the hospitality space. You've tailored somebody else's content into the context of what we discussed. Sure. Okay? So in all effect, it's yours. Now, the other is that, say, to me, the extremism of the law, where you call someone, the extremism of the law is, if I quote that without having asked you, without giving you credit, technically, according to the creepy, non-creepy line, or the extremism of overuse of something, or as you say, the plugin for LinkedIn, you can be all mad at me. You could chase me down and go, what the hell are you using my stuff for?
I totally could. I could. Right. I wouldn't, but I could.
Right. So that's an extreme use of the law that I think is unfair. Because if I'm saying, by the way, the ship and shipwreck, blah blah, and I forget in the context, say put it. Now I'm on stage. I'm talking to 10,000 people, and I say that, and I don't say your name. That really pisses you off.
So the National Speakers Association has a code of ethics, right? The National Speakers Association has a code of ethics, and in this National Speaker Association code of ethics, remind you, this isn't a law. This is just a thing. And one of the things in the National Speakers Association code of ethics is you don't use other people's material, right?
Ethics, schmethics.
Period. But I mean, if let's use something let's use something more specific.
What was an honest mistake? I forgot.
Well, that's fine. That's okay. That's completely fine. No,
what if I get famous for using it? When all of a sudden Lauren thinks that there's ships and shipwrecks and and you're sitting there going, I didn't do this. That's what I say. In
this specific case, I wouldn't care. I wouldn't care at all. Let's use a more real world scenario. I do a presentation all the time. You've heard parts of this before where I always talk about content is king, customer experience is queen, and data is the crown jewels. And my entire talk is structured that way, right? To set that up, right?
And I've heard a lot of people that saw your presentation say the exact same stuff, and they never use your name.
Which is fine, so long as they don't impact my ability to make money. But if you wrote a book and you talked, and it was called "Content is King, Customer Experience is Queen, and Data is the Crown Jewels," and you also structured the whole book that walked through it that way, I'd have a big problem with that. I'd have an enormous problem with that because you are using my creation to grow your own business in a way that's detrimental to my own success. That's a huge problem from my perspective. And by the way, I'd probably win that on copyright laws because I have publicly presented that information for the last 10 years, right?
However, if Lauren was grossly unsuccessful in doing that and was borderline bankrupt and had no resources to get, which is obviously not the case, you would be much less interested if Lauren had built a multi-billion-dollar business off of that.
Yeah, for sure I would. Oh, yeah.
Then you're going to be much more interested.
Also, that's
both made a great point for me.
Don't sue people who don't have money.
You both made a great point for me. It's not the rule of the law; it's the value of it. And there, you just made my point for the whole conversation because it wasn't when you follow the law. The law would say you should chase me down, whether it's one person.
No, Lauren, no, you are
but because it's more
misinterpreting.
valuable, I got to use the law for that.
Lauren, you're grossly misinterpreting my point here. Because the difference here is the difference here is it has nothing to do with the value. Let me restate that.
Made the point about it. If I didn't make
hold on. First of all, I never said you should only follow the law. Let me be abundantly clear about that because I'm almost getting offended here.
Oh, I got Tim in the corner. Come on.
Anybody who thinks that I'm ever going to say you should only follow the law when it's economically viable for you really does not know my character, and I have an enormous problem with that. Let's be really clear about this, right?
Oh my gosh, it's fun.
Tim, we were only making assumptions based on our interactions with you over decades.
Well, and I will grant that's understandable. But no, the point here, Lauren, is if you built a multi-billion-dollar business off that content is king, customer experience is queen, and data is the crown jewels, right? I am likely going to be able to show that I suffered harm from it because the economic success that you enjoyed likely was rightfully due to my work. If you're living in the gutter, right, then clearly I will never be able to prove that I was harmed by your behaviors. So whether it was legal or not is besides the point. I'm not going to win the case. And if I did win the case, I'd gain no benefit anyway. But I would be unable to show that I was harmed in any way. One of the core tenets of the law is somebody has to be harmed.
If you were not making money off of it anyway, there was no negative impact.
I make money off it all the time. I get paid to speak.
Right, but if it
I
didn't
get paid
show
to
that you
write.
diminished
I
any
get
of your
paid to
potential from
consult.
it, which is harder to prove. But first off, let me be perfectly clear.
No. But
I'm not implying to you, for anybody listening to you, I'm not implying in any way that Tim is arbitrary in his enforcement of following the law. But it is fun to coach you. The other is, you did make the point that if it was just me forgetting telling one person, no big deal. But if I lost millions or made billions off and you didn't get anything from it, then you would definitely pursue it. You were very adamant about your reaction to that. So
because I likely suffered harm.
But you don't. Okay, here's where the butterfly wings flap and there's a storm on the other side of the world, the chaos theory. That person I talked to impacted a puzzle piece that they were missing, changed their business profile, and made billions. And you didn't benefit, but you never knew.
What are you going to do, man? If a tree falls in the woods and I don't hear it.
Profile and a plug-in and realize that you're an A-type person and I said the right thing in an email that made me $1 billion. You never knew.
Let me sum this up.
Yeah, because
I think we are migrating.
I'm sorry, I've been
the
the protagonist the whole day. Sorry about that.
No. We are. I think industry, business, society needs to transition from the golden rule to the platinum rule. Okay, and this isn't my thing. I wish it was because I thought of it, but
By
another
the way, I always
person
credit Julie Ask for that
independently-
big mother, big brother thing because I wish I'd come up with that. It's genius. Anyway, sorry, go on.
Yeah, exactly. But somebody else did publish it earlier and things like that, right?
Yeah.
Which is the transition from treating others the way you would like to be treated yourself to treating others the way they would like to be treated. That's the whole, that is the essence of Me Too. That is the essence of GDPR. That is the essence of where society needs to get to, right? Because the golden rule is great, is fantastic, but you know what? Now it's not quite good enough. Sorry, Jesus. So I'm 51% Jewish. I'm very right?
Wow, I got to go now.
Time to look at the time. Actually, look at the time. We should, and I know we totally did not hit half the topics, but to Robert's point, it was a little bit soft on the news feature, and I do apologize if I got your feathers ruffled for it. I love pushing the parameter of things that I question myself on. Okay, I mean, honestly, when I put the plugin in, I'm looking at it and I'm saying, this is handy, but would I like this used against me? I mean, that's usually what I look at stuff. Okay, if I put the gun in the other person's hand, do I want it aimed at me? And that's why I've looked at it as, and that's why I want to bring it in and say, hey, look at this thing.
But what Robert just said is actually more interesting.
But that's not the whole thing. It's how it gets used. It's not the data.
Hey, you're going to shoot a deer, we're going to have right? It's different.
They could be used for good, and they could be used for evil. Right? It's the usage is the problem.
Yeah, I'll tell you a thing. I'm going to make two recommendations of things I've been listening to and learning from this week that are well worth checking out. Brad Smith is a former chief counsel, or he is the chief counsel actually of Microsoft. Has written just wrote a really good book. I'm a quarter of the way through it, and I've made 300 different highlights in it. It's really good. Called Tools and Weapons. I want to get the subtitle right. It's called Tools and Weapons, The Promise and the Peril of the Digital Age. And it's very much about what we're talking about today, and something people would really do well to read because it's a really smart book and a really well thought out book. And this is a guy who's been, spending his entire career around this for the last 25 years or so. Well worth listening to, reading. Separately, there was a really good interview, and I will admit she annoys me from time to time, but Kara Swisher of Recode.
I love Kara Swisher.
I think she's very smart. I think she's very capable. She is probably the most biased journalist, and I'm using biased in air quotes. She has a point of view for sure.
Absolutely.
Which I sometimes think colors the questions she asks and her willingness to allow people to answer them. She asks leading questions in ways that I've rarely seen.
And Scott Galloway too, and their Pivot podcast is genius.
So on the Recode Decode,
very, very independently love the two. They're now together, right?
Well, on her Recode Decode podcast, she just did an interview with Obama's cybersecurity chief, Michael Daniel, a guy who who's the CEO of the nonprofit Cyber Threat Alliance. And it's a really fascinating interview, really fascinating episode. It runs an hour, so it's an hour out of your time. You can listen to it on the treadmill or in the car or things like that. I would highly recommend it because it, again, speaks to a lot of the questions we have here in terms of what is the correct standard? Is it the golden rule or is it the platinum rule or is it something else in terms of what we do with customers' data? And I'm entirely in favor. Let me be abundantly clear. We absolutely should use customer data. Customer data is incredibly valuable and can make us really create better experiences for our customers and grow our businesses. So I'm entirely in favor of that. I also think that as we do that, we need to be really conscious about how are we using that data? For what purposes are we using that data? Are we using it in ways that is consistent with what our customers' expectations would be? Are we doing it in a way that exhibits a duty of care? And what do we do with the data once we're done with it, right? And things like that. So I think those are really interesting questions that, I'll give you another quote you can steal, Lauren. People say that data is the new oil, and I want to be fair. Brad Smith was the one who led me in this direction in his book. People say data is the new oil. He argues that it's not because it's so abundant, and I think he's right. You don't have to dig for it. You don't have to drill for it. You don't have to prospect for it. Data's out there everywhere to be had. What I do think is insights are the new oil, and you can't fuel insights without the data. So I definitely agree that the data is there, but also we have to say, okay, there's also a cost to having that data, and are we being wise in the way we're being custodians of that data during the periods while we hold it?
I was talking to somebody that's actually yesterday over lunch, and we were talking about there was a table across the way, and a burger was put down. Okay, actually we were by the pool area of a resort, and the burger was put down at a table. Nobody was at the table, and we were talking literally about customer data as to how to use it, inquire it. We were talking about geofencing, to be specific. And I pointed over to the burger and I said, if you just walked by and saw the burger there, and would you eat it? No, right. You don't know where it's from. You don't know whether there's something wrong with it. And so you want to know where the source of that is before you decide to use it, and you should know what to do with it. But the idea of it is that that's how we have to look at our data. Is like we have to know where it's coming from to know whether it's usable and whether we have the rights to it. I mean, it's not even our burger. I mean, it's sitting up there kind of thing.
Right.
So,
exactly.
That same process to it. It's and again that's I didn't mean to be such a mean advocate about this, but I wanted to just push the conversation back and forth rather than all of us do the yes thing saying, oh yeah, that's crazy stuff. That shouldn't be used. This should be, this is violation of data. I wanted to push the questions about it. So I apologize if I aggregated from it, but I love the conversation from it because the only way you can reaffirm your value proposition is when you challenge it, where you have to poke at it. And ask the question again, and not just accept the answer you've already given yourself, but to question the answer you create up for it. And I look at these things, and it's so easy to see these tools and functionalities. And like I said, new toy. Man, this is going to be, I could do this and this. And then like I said, this is as much therapy for anything else. I like to push that wall and say, yeah, but. And I wanted to be the but. And I wanted to push against on that, and literally I was the ass today. But
no, it's all good.
I like the dialogue with it, and I appreciate it very much because it reaffirms, the smell factor. Like, it just doesn't smell right. There's something there. The sniff test. Okay. So,
I've got one interesting observation since I've now profiled Tim and Lauren using this crystal nose tool. Tim is an initiator. Okay,
yes,
that's the type, and so is Lauren. So even though they've been battling back and forth on this, they're the same personality types.
Oh, I've done that. Yeah, sure.
Oh, yeah, no. I'll send you over. I'll try to. I don't know how to produce the report or anything, whatever it is, but
I'd love to see what they say. I'd be curious to see if it lines up with.
Tim tends to be decisive, forward-thinking, and spontaneous, with a natural aversion to rigid structure.
He likes pink bathing suits and swimming in the nude.
He displays energy and confidence. He's an initiator. He likes innovation. He avoids detailed analysis. I don't know about that. I don't think he avoids detailed analysis is maybe not too accurate.
I think that's a good one.
If it's the grunt work, I certainly try to make sure I have minions for stuff like that.
That's probably it.
But I want the detailed analysis.
Yeah. Hey, Tim, am I going to see you next week? Oh, sorry.
Hold on 1 second.
Lauren's trying to change the topic before I profile Lauren. Lauren tends to be decisive and energized by ideas, favoring action over analysis and the big picture over details. Quick tip, approach him in a lively, energetic manner. He's an initiator. He likes public speaking, and he avoids creating procedures.
Actually, one of the things
guy who was a GM, I can't believe that one's true either.
Yeah. The one of the profiles that I put I added information into it. It says likes to find ways to work around rules.
Shall we do Edward St. Ange?
Oh no, we know that's
not without him being here.
Yeah, Robert. Hey,
he's not here. Edward tends to be decisive, forward-thinking, and spontaneous, with a natural aversion to rigid structure. He's also an initiator. He likes creativity. He avoids isolation.
So, all right, pull up yours.
Stuart
No, Robert, let's see what you got.
Hang on.
See, again, I'm not gonna lie. It makes me a little squishy that we're sharing this publicly without people having had the opportunity to say whether or not they're okay with that.
I see Robert bashes all the
and that's my point, and that is completely my point. Stuart tends to be direct, fast-paced, and primarily driven by results or goals. He is an architect. He likes making decisions. He avoids working in groups. So, poor people at Fuel. So.
How about you, Robert?
Come on, Robert, read yours.
Wow.
Robert's like, wow, this is amazing. I'm looking at it right now. It says he's sexy and,
sexy
beloved by
Panera.
Robert often likes to get right down to business, preferring to focus on the results. Okay. I'm a captain. Whatever that is, I'm a D. Everybody's got D's here. Likes personal achievements, avoids giving up authority. Okay. So, maybe.
So is the Robert worth mentioning?
Maybe not a control.
Well,
yes,
it is 1:30. I unfortunately can go no longer publicly.
Tim, am I going to see you next week?
In Miami?
Tim is.
Yeah.
I will be in Miami. I don't know if I'm staying for the whole day. I have to be at a client at 8 a.m. Wednesday morning, and I need to make sure I make my flight and all that kind of stuff. But
I'll see you Monday night, Tuesday for the HSMEI Curate program.
Yeah, should be fun.
And I will not be there. I had a client thing, and I told Julie that I couldn't make it, and she set those dates anyway. So, but I'm
wow, talk about insensitivity to the primary person to be there, right? Yeah, well, Mr. Tim, after all this wonderful conversation, where is it that people can find you, sir?
TimPeter.com. And any information that you find there, you can use publicly as long as you give me some credit for it.
And for legal advice, you can go to TimPeter-
legal advice. What you should do is anybody other than me.
And architectural advice is
Oh, yeah. If you want to know how plumbing works, let me tell you, you really don't want to go talk to me.
And you can find a psychological profile now on crystaltalks.com with the Chrome plugin. Use one of your 10 free profiles on LinkedIn, Salesforce, HubSpot, or some of these other platforms that they operate on. So
Mr. Robert, where is it they can find you, sir?
Well, aside from crystaltalks.com, which I think we should all give up all of our websites and just use that, I think. It would be Robert K. Cole on social media or rockcheetah.com.
Excellent. And for this very lively episode, and for all previous 217 prior episodes, you can go to This Week in Hospitality, digitalmarketing.com/live. Look for show number 218. This will be, I don't know, I'm afraid to simulcast this one next week on EU and APAC. It's a lively conversation. It may spark some conversations next week. But you can also find it on all their Facebook pages next week.
And I will not be here next week, by the way. I'm teaching at Rutgers Business School next.
Oh, that's Friday. Right. Yeah. You do your stint there. Now, do you when you do, is it an all day thing? Like you do class after class after class, or is it over a week, or what do you do?
What these are is Rutgers Mini MBA program. It is a 5-day intensive. There are 10 sessions, and I teach the last one on that day. So it is it's a whole afternoon. It's this is their social media mini MBA. They do a digital marketing mini MBA that I teach for as well as a customer experience mini MBA that I teach for. But this is my actual topic is social media integration. So it's really how you connect social to the rest of your digital marketing and how you make your digital more social.
And if you could survive Tim's session, you get the degree, right? So there you go.
Correct. I'm the last thing standing between you and your certificate. It's
pushing it over the finish line. That's
yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, until next week for show number 219, 11:30 Eastern. Thank you, gentlemen, very much. Thanks, Stuart, for joining us earlier. And we're sorry, Mr. Eddy, we ran out of time for you to join us.
The Rut Row, the $100,000 a night hotel room, but that's okay.
We'll throw it in the notes.
Talk about it next week.
There is no inventory carryover on these topics. So.
That's true.
There you go.
That's true. All right. Bye, everyone.
Take care, everybody.